Hello, welcome to Global Eye. I'm Parikshit Luthra. The top global story this evening: Donald Trump has become the first former president in U.S. history to face federal indictment. He has been charged with 7 counts, including conspiracy to obstruct, unauthorized retention of national security documents, and false statements. However, Trump says he's innocent and said that he will surrender before the authorities this Tuesday. To discuss that and much more, we're now joined by Steve Herman, Chief National Correspondent at the Voice of America. Steve, thank you very much for being with us here on CNBC-TV18. 7 charges over the classified documents case. How serious is this for former President Trump?
It is very serious. It is the most significant legal challenge he has ever faced before, during, or after his presidency. We've never had anything like this in American history, going back to 1776, when America declared independence from Great Britain. We have never had a former president indicted on federal criminal charges.
Right. Give us a sense of the kind of charges against Donald Trump, and could he face a prison sentence as a result?
He certainly could face prison if convicted on any of these charges. They are quite serious, and of course, they involve alleged mishandling of sensitive government documents that Trump has acknowledged, essentially taking from the White House to his home in the state of Florida, the Mar-a-Lago estate. And these charges involve violating the Espionage Act, making false statements, and conspiring to obstruct justice. And a number of legal analysts here in the United States are saying, from what they know, because this is still under seal, we haven't seen precisely what is in the indictment, but from what Trump has said and from what his lawyer has said and leaks to the media, these are quite serious charges.
Right. And what has been the defense of President Trump's legal team? What will be his next move, according to you?
Well, the next move is for him to show up for an initial appearance in a federal courtroom in Miami in the state of Florida next Tuesday. Trump is not going to fight that, although he will, according to himself and his lawyers, vociferously fight these charges in court, and presumably there will be a trial at some point. None of us really see the former president entering into any sort of plea bargain arrangement, that they would want to get a trial and hope to be acquitted through that process.
Right. Give us also a sense of what this means for former President Trump's political career as well, his bid for presidency, and if all of these charges go ahead, what will this mean politically for the Republican Party?
Sure. Well, as you know, he is the front runner in his quest for a 3rd consecutive time to capture the Republican Party nomination and attempt to return to the White House for a 2nd term as president. We've only had once in American history where a president was out of office and successfully came back. That was Grover Cleveland in the late 19th century. So there is a precedent for that. The challenge here for Trump is that some of his primary party opponents will now ask him, as some are starting to do, that he step aside because he's facing these criminal charges. But Trump is the front runner. I covered him in the White House for 4 years. He is not someone who backs down, or as he likes to say, never give an inch. So Trump is going to be very defiant. He's fundraising off of this. We can expect that his core group of supporters, about 1/3 of the Republican Party base, will most likely stick with him. But 6 out of 10 Americans, presumed voters, say that Donald Trump should not be president again.
Right. How does this really help the Democrats at this stage? Just about 7 to 8 months for the election to go in the United States. How does this really help the Democrats?
Yes, it's about 7 months before the first votes are cast in the primary elections, both the Republicans and Democrats. Joe Biden, the presumptive nominee of the Democratic Party. The Democrats are just going to sit back and watch the Republicans fight among themselves. There's really no political upside for President Biden to really start attacking Donald Trump. The White House is being very careful. They will just say, we are not involved in the judicial process here. It needs to play out. Of course, Donald Trump is not seeing it that way at all. He believes that this is political retaliation against him and that this is the only way to stop him from getting back in the White House, and that Joe Biden is using the Department of Justice as an instrument to go after Donald Trump. Of course, the Justice Department and the White House will tell you none of that is really going on.
All right, Steve Herman, thank you so much for joining us here on Global Eye, giving us your view on Donald Trump's indictment, what it means for the former president's election bid and what it means politically in America at this juncture. Let's move on, and this is a disturbing story coming in. Hundreds of forest fires have erupted across Canada, affecting critical infrastructure and forcing evacuations. The smoke and haze has affected parts of the United States, East Coast, including New York, Washington, and other major cities. Radhika Udas and Shilpa Rani Peta report on the impact of the fires, which have caused the worst air pollution in recent U.S. history.
Modeling shows that this may be an especially severe wildfire season throughout the summer. This is a scary time for a lot of people, not just in Alberta, but right across the country.
Wildfires in Canada's western provinces are a common occurrence, but not this year. Flames from the fires have spread rapidly towards the east. Canada's ministers say at least 3.8 million hectares have already burned down. There were 437 active wildfires over the past 2 days, with nearly 250 labelled as out of control by the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre. Canada is receiving support from the US to douse the fires. A team of firefighters from South Africa have also arrived.
We've received a lot of warnings already from yesterday, from different, like from my son's daycare itself and from the environment, Canada itself. Our companies, they're advising us to work from home.
The disaster, however, was not just limited to the Great North. Smoke from the fires have also spread to the east coast of the United States, leaving a blanket of haze on the city of New York. The air quality index has surpassed a hazardous 400 times in few U.S. cities. All outdoor activity has been curtailed.
Schools were shut down today, and then tomorrow also they were asked to be remote. So this has affected not only, one crowd or particular crowd, because it has so much smoke everywhere. It felt like smoke, you were inhaling barbecue smoke that comes out from, whenever you do barbecue, chicken barbecue, the smoke that you're inhaling, it was 24/7.
Warm and dry conditions are expected to persist in Canada for some more months. About 26,000 people are being evacuated in the country. Quebec has been the worst hit. That's not all. The air quality has sparked health concerns as well. While Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau's defense that the wildfires were caused by climate change may invite criticism as well, the threat of climate change will not drift away anytime soon. In Mumbai, Radhika Udas.
All right, Radhika Udas getting us that disturbing story on the Canada wildfires and how it's affecting the ecosystem in the area. Moving on to the other big global headline. With an aim to check the economic coercion of countries like China and Russia, US and the United Kingdom have come together for an Atlantic declaration. President Biden has said that US companies have committed investments of £14 billion in the UK this week. What are the pillars of this agreement, which really cover all economic sectors and has national security interests of the two countries at the core? Commenting on the Atlantic Declaration, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said, and I quote him now, "Countries like China and Russia are willing to manipulate and exploit our openness, steal our intellectual property, use technology for authoritarian ends, or withdraw crucial resources like energy. They will not succeed." What are the key objectives of the Atlantic Declaration? Number one, resilient, diversified and secure supply chains, close coordination on economic security and tech protection toolkits as well. The Atlantic Declaration has a 5-point action plan. Firstly, ensuring US-UK leadership in critical and emerging technology, which includes joint R&D in quantum technology, telecom, semiconductors and AI. Setting up of a US-UK strategic technology investor council and facilitating reciprocal talent flow as well. Secondly, having economic security toolkits. This includes preventing outbound investment from going to countries of concern, ensuring flexible and coordinated export controls, developing an effective joint sanction strategy, and also reducing vulnerabilities across supply chains of critical technology. Thirdly, putting in place a data bridge between US and UK to facilitate data flows and privacy protections, accelerate cooperation on AI and deepening collaboration on privacy-enhancing technologies. Both sides will put in place a critical mineral agreement for the electric vehicle supply chain, which includes cobalt, graphite, lithium, manganese and nickel as well. A joint clean energy supply chain action plan and a joint standing committee on nuclear energy cooperation is also on the cards. All of this likely to happen in the next 12 to 18 months. Finally, deepening industrial collaboration in defense, increasing cooperation on tackling emerging infectious diseases, and exploring cooperation on space, nuclear power and propulsion as well. So a very broad-based agenda that US and UK will be embarking on together in 2023. On that note, we are going to be taking a short break here on CNBC-TV18, but don't go anywhere. CNBC-TV18 has partnered with US-India Business Council for the upcoming India Ideas Summit, which kicks off next week. This comes just ahead of Prime Minister Modi's US visit later this month. A special coverage exclusively on CNBC-TV18 with US-India Business Council President Atul Kashyap. Don't go anywhere. That's coming up.
Forget my statistics. Wins, losses. My man of the matches. My greatest evers.
Show me hope, show me faith. Take
Forget my interviews, my sound bites.
fire, show me grace. Now you're
My every rise,
speaking.
every fall. What I am has no bearing on what I'm about to be. My account starts today.
USIBC, the springboard of your story that's about to be written. Start your account today.
Who said you need 4 doors for your family?
Just cut the crap, man.
The surprisingly spacious MG Comet EV, the no-nonsense car.
Keeping up with the pace of life is not easy. To find the perfect balance, we need to savor the pause. See? It never ends.
Loan, loan, loan. अरे जिसको देखो दे रहे हैं लोन 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 और इसको उसको सबको चाहिए लोन लोन लोन
जो घर लेना हो ले ले लोन ले ले लोन गोल्ड लोन लेना हो ले ले लोन बिजनेस बढ़ाना हो ले ले लोन अरे लोन पर लोन ये कौन सा है सही लोन
कभी सही इंटरेस्ट तो बोल
कई छुपी शर्तों का झोल
अरे स्टॉप अब गोल गोल को छोड़ सुन सीधी बात के बोल अब हर सपना होगा पूरा जो तेरा है अधूरा और IIFL फाइनेंस पे है मेरा भरोसा पूरा गोल से लेकर बिजनेस पर्सनल से लेकर होम हर जरूरत को मिलेगा लोन तो हुआ ना यही सही लोन IIFL फाइनेंस करता है सीधी बात
Get ready for yet another episode of India Inc. on the Move, powered by Rockwell Automation, in association with Forbes India and CNBC-TV18. Join us as industry experts explore sustainable manufacturing and reimagining India's life sciences through innovation and automation. Together, let's drive sustainable manufacturing in India with India Inc. on the Move at this time on CNBC-TV18.
Welcome back. You're watching Global Eye. The India Idea Summit hosted by the US-India Business Council starts next week. CNBC-TV18 and USIBC are coming together for an exclusive partnership. The theme this year is engaging India with trust, resilience and growth. You can catch all the action and highlights from the summit through next week on CNBC-TV18 and CNBC-TV18.com. Watch out for conversations with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, US Secretary for Commerce Gina Raimondo, Mira Hooper, Director, Indo-Pacific Strategy, Lindsay Ford, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, and Anne Neuberger, Deputy National Security Advisor. This summit comes just ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the United States and can potentially set the agenda for discussions in Washington, D.C. To discuss that and more, we're joined by Atul Keshav, former Ambassador and President at US-India Business Council. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for joining us here on the program. Let me begin by asking you about the India Idea Summit, which kicks off next week. What's special this year, and what is the theme that you would want the business chambers of both countries to focus on this year?
Parikshit, thank you very much, and thank you for your partnership and having me on the program. Look, we are all about resilience, trust, and growth. We believe that the United States and India, being great democracies, are truly resilient because of our great and dynamic and diverse populations. And the pandemic has proven how well we have gotten through tough times together and how much we trust each other. And beyond resilience and trust, growth. Democracies have to deliver. USIBC believes in free trade, open societies, open markets, the power of free enterprise. And we want to see both countries take relations to the next level. We want to hit $500 billion in annual trade in goods and services between the United States and India. We want to see India rise to be a 10, 20, $30 trillion economy. We think it'll be good for America, good for India, good for all of the free people around the world.
Right. Ambassador Keshav, USIBC is also hosting the inaugural Indus X conference in coordination with the US Department of Defense and the Indian Defense Ministry. What is this all about? Because defense will be a critical component of the Prime Minister's state visit to the United States this month.
Parikshit, there's been 25 years of efforts by a very large contingent of people in America and India to drive our strategic convergence. And that has largely been done. Now we need to drive the economic convergence. We're only at $200 billion in annual trade between the US and India. We urgently need to get to $500 billion. It'll be good for our peace and security for both of us and for the entire world. And then the next big thing is our technological convergence. I've said that it's as important as the nuclear deal, which I helped to negotiate and deliver for both of our countries in 2005 to 2008 timeframe. This ISET, Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies, is really, really important. If you look at outer space, telecoms, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and then, of course, cybersecurity and defense, there is so much we can do together. On defense, we are having an Indus X meeting hosted by the USIBC at the US Chamber in Washington, on the margins of the visit, where the Pentagon and the Indian MOD are bringing together startup enterprises under our roof in order to spark a more intense private sector to private sector defense collaboration. That is critical in these very turbulent geostrategic times. Our two defense enterprises in both countries need to get closer together. They need to build the capability that ensures deterrence. Deterrence ensures peace and stability. Peace and stability ensure prosperity. So we're very proud to be able to host that. And we think that it's going to be a really good accelerator for US-India defense cooperation.
Right. Ambassador Keshav, there has been a lot of activity between India and United States since January this year in the run-up to this state visit that's going to happen on the 21st of June. You've had Jake Sullivan and NSA Ajit Doval meeting. You've had the Defense Secretary going to the United States. The Foreign Secretary has already visited. There have been conversations between Secretary Blinken and External Affairs Minister Jaishankar as well. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has visited India very recently. A lot of momentum when it comes to defense technology and critical and emerging technologies. When it comes to the pillar on critical emerging technologies, what is the kind of breakthrough that you're expecting during the visit and meeting of Prime Minister Modi and President Biden? And what is going to be your recommendation to the governments, to the two governments at the India Idea Summit next week?
So, Parikshit, we were very honored to host the launch of the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies with Secretary Gina Raimondo, with National Security Advisors Jake Sullivan and Ajit Doval in January. We think that both the governments have really hit upon the next big thing, which is the technological convergence. Obviously, we'd like to see deals. We want to see deals across the entire spectrum of United States and Indian business systems. We want to see deals on electronics and the digital economy, semiconductors, fabless systems as well. We want to see energy deals. We want to see defense deals, aerospace deals, fintech deals. Deal flow is really important. And if we can get this right, and if we can boost trade flows, and if we can enhance the technological convergence, it's going to be good for the safety and security of both of our people. So we're encouraging this. We think the governments have definitely sent a strong signal. As the old saying goes, trade follows the flag, and the flags are waving, and they're giving a very clear signal on where our private sectors ought to go. So we're encouraging that. We support it in every way. The other thing I'd like to see, frankly, is I'd like to see more facilitation of the flow of talent. U.S. and India are brimming with talent. We are the innovation leaders in the entire world, and we need to unleash that potential even more. So one thing I believe in as a former diplomat, and I helped with establishing the consulate in Hyderabad, is we need more American consulates in India. You know, we ought to be in Bangalore. We ought to be in Ahmedabad. We ought to be in other places. There are more consulates, American consulates in France than there are in India. And I look at Bangalore when I've been there recently with the sheer number of American companies, the amount of American citizens, the amount of Indians working with American companies. The numbers are unbelievable. We should be in Bangalore. We should be in other places. And frankly, India could also put consulates in places like Seattle. And that talent flow is really important, like making sure that we can optimize the capability of our rather strong private sector means that we got to make sure that talented people can move and work and serve to produce the next generation of deep tech and future tech that's really going to impact all of our lives. So at the summit next week, the India Ideas Summit, we have Tony Blinken, as you mentioned, Gina Raimondo, U.S. senators, all kinds of folks coming and speaking, Ambassador Taranjit Singh Sandhu, my dear friend. And what we want to talk about is the ingredients, the policy ingredients and leadership that can spark the next level of prosperity for America and India and lift hundreds of millions of people up to new levels of prosperity and happiness and peace and security. We're all about that.
Right. Okay, Ambassador Keshav, just to go down specifically to the issue of semiconductors, which is also tied to a national security issue. There was an MOU signed between the Indian Commerce Ministry and the U.S. Department of Commerce during Secretary Raimondo's visit. What kind of expectation do you have from the upcoming meetings that the Prime Minister will have in D.C.? Are we going to have some takeaways on the flow of technologies, on trusted partnerships in semiconductors between the industries of the two countries?
So, Parikshit, this is something that is led by our private sectors, right? They have the technology, they have the innovation, they have the designers, and they have the investment committees and the shareholders who decide how best to allocate capital. I say that attracting capital is like a flower trying to attract a bee. The system has to be in place for that capital to come and set up. We're talking about multiple tens of billions of dollars to set up a semiconductor ecosystem. You have to have the most stable electricity supply, the cleanest water. You have to have an electronics ecosystem in place. You have to have the quickest supply chain movement, because a semiconductor chip moves around the world as much as 5 times in the process of being completed and going into the product. So you need to be really, really focused on what it takes to make someone want to make a 10, 20, 30 billion dollar decision about semiconductors. Now, here's the good news. India has clearly set itself the task of achieving this. I was in Silicon Valley with Minister Ashwini Vaishnav a few weeks ago, and it was really interesting to see how many careful notes he took about what it takes to establish a world-class semiconductor ecosystem. And we had all these experts who were talking about what it took to do that in the United States and in other countries around the world. And I think India has set itself a task, and it's very promising to see how much investment of time and effort and money India is putting in. I think that having more of a semiconductor capability in India will deleverage risk around the world. There's too much concentration of semiconductor production in very vulnerable strategic geographies. And so if India can really get this going and get the ecosystem in place, it's going to be good for India and good for the world. So this is where private sector deals have to be struck. Government can set the tone. Government can offer the incentives. Government can create the kind of enthusiasm, but then the private sector has to make the deal. And the deal has to work compared to a similar deal in a different place. So industries will look at regulatory issues, land issues, supply chain issues, ease of doing business, level playing field, predictability and stability of the regulatory environment, many, many, many things before they make a decision of that magnitude. And what I've seen is an enormous amount of effort by the government of India, and I think a lot of encouragement by the U.S. government. Remember when Janet Yellen came to India in November last year and said India is a prime location for friendshoring? That reflects the trust that we have in each other. And it's a trust that's been expanded as a result of the bitter lessons of the pandemic. When we needed help, India rushed to our aid. When India needed help, we rushed to India's aid. That's what friends do. That's what democracies do. That's why it makes sense to make semiconductors in India.
All right, Ambassador Keshav, thank you so much for joining us here, giving us an overview of the USIBC India Idea Summit. And we're really looking forward to covering it and broadcasting some great conversations from the summit right here on CNBC-TV18. And in a way, the summit will also set the tone and give us the temperature in the room, and also the kind of MOUs, agreements that can be signed when Prime Minister Modi sits down for those crucial bilateral meetings with President Biden in Washington, D.C. Thanks once again for being with us. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Global Eye. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.